This is the MHS Podcast, the online radio voice of Metuchen High School.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Metuchen High School Podcast, the online radio voice of MHS. It's our best of show today, brought to you by the Metuchen Savings Bank, serving the Brainy Borough for over 100 years. I'm Eddie Kalegi, glad to be bringing it to you. It's been a great year for the podcast, going all the way back to the mud run in August, heading through this entire second year, and today we will be recapping 5 of those best interviews of the entire school year. Coming in at number 5, Sarah Terracina, the junior, joining us to discuss the Astronomy Club. She has also joined the club to do the announcements, which we've been very grateful of for her helping us out. We'll be listening back to that interview from September. Coming in at number 4, Miss Volosin and Sophie Falkenstein joining the show to discuss the Empowerment Club. Coming in at number 3, an interview with my broadcasting teacher, longtime teacher, MSG Varsity creator Mike Quick, to talk a little about his career, and he's also a great teacher. He offers some advice. Then coming in at number 2, a great town interview. We talked to Bob Matland, former owner of Black Belt Institute, talking about his Tai Chi for Health campaign, working with people with Parkinson's disease, but also a lot about some in-depth stuff within Metuchen, specifically highlighting all that's coming with the Forum Theater in the coming years. And then number 1, our top interview of the year, we had the great pleasure of talking to Pat Williams, Orlando Magic founder, author, raised 19 children, 13 of them adopted. So we get to look back at that interview. He also offers some great advice at the end of that interview for high schoolers. So be sure to give this show a listen. We'll get right into the interviews in a moment. And just a reminder, this is not the last show of the year. There will be one more coming out early June. It's going to be a big show to wrap up the year, wrap up the second year of the MHS podcast. I can do a little preview now. The big interview, Metuchen Mayor Jonathan Bush will be joining the show in that one. But without further ado, let's get into the top 5 interviews of this year on the podcast, starting with Sarah Terracina and the Astronomy Club. Welcome back to the Metuchen High School Podcast, the online radio voice of MHS. I'm Eddie Kalegi. It's time for our first club spotlight of the school year, and that's the Astronomy Club. To promote the club and the upcoming stargazing event, it's great to be joined by Club President and MHS Junior Sarah Terracina. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eddie.
So before we get to the club itself, tell us a little about yourself. When did you first develop an interest in space?
So my whole life I've been surrounded by science, with my parents being chemists and biologists. And so my dad used to watch science documentaries all the time. And my favorite ones were the ones about space, because I just love the stars. And they had these beautiful graphics and beautiful photos, mostly from Hubble. And I was just so fascinated by them, and I wanted to learn more about them. And it was like sci-fi. And I just always wanted to learn more and just like stare at stars forever.
Now you mentioned a chemist parent and a biologist parent. So what steered you, is it just because of the documentaries or anything else, towards physics rather than chemistry or biology?
That's really good. I've never really thought about it, but it's true that biology and biochemistry is like super far off from physics. I guess just a big part of it was like knowing that I could do a science from like an early age, that it was like a thing you could do, is just study things. And the thing that really just fascinated me most was those beautiful photos. I was just always mesmerized by them, that they were there, and they were huge. Like, they're huge, ginormous structures in space, far away from us, but we can still see them and see these beautiful colors, and the technology allowing us to do that is just incredible. And it, someday being a part of that would just be amazing. And it's a new frontier. So
do you plan on pursuing a career in astronomy?
That's a big question for me right now. It's something that I've always had to focus on, and something I really would like to do. But the thing with astronomy is it takes like a long time, and you have to be a professor. So I definitely want something with space. And I'm hoping that physics really I take a liking to physics this year with Mr. Kegel, which I probably will, hopefully. And I just wanted something with space, not specifically astronomy, but that's my favorite thing right now.
Well, you and Mr. Kegel are in charge of the Astronomy Club. Tell us a little about the club itself, and what are some plans for the upcoming school year?
Okay, so as the head, I really have a big focus on star parties. Star parties are a lot of fun because you can meet astronomers from around town, like Mr. Nelson, or from around the state. They come all over from the NJAA, the New Jersey Astronomical Society. They bring their own scopes, which are really much nicer than ours. Like, ours is very nice. We're very lucky to have it. But you can look through all other sorts of scopes, learn about how they work, how they made them, because a lot of them built them themselves. Mr. Nelson is really nice when he built. And it just gives you an opportunity to like talk science with people and be excited about it. But further on, with the Astronomy Club, I really just want to open the different facets of science. My real bigger thing is Astronomy Club is the focus because the physics room inside and we have a telescope. But if you're interested in like another science, it's just really a pressure-free environment to like talk with science and learn about science and just do it for fun, because it might not sound fun to other people, but it's interesting and it's basically like a discussion place where you can learn about it. And that's basically what I kind of want to make it, a place for friends to hang out and talk about science.
Well, one of the big events, you mentioned the star parties. This coming Friday, September 14th, is the Metuchen Stargazing event. What will be happening that night, and why should students come to the event?
Well, I really have a lot planned for that night. First of all, I've talked to Miss Nancy Goldberg, and it's supposed to be on the Metuchen town webpage, so you should see it up there on La Rosa's Facebook page. So I'm trying to get it, and I contact the NJAA guys. I'm trying to get everyone in the surrounding area to just come to Vitas Park on Friday. You don't have to bring anything. I just ask that you don't put your flashlights on your phone. That will really ruin it for a lot of people. And I just want people to just come. And if you do come, the biggest thing is that it's something beautiful. This town can seem really small sometimes, and I feel like people feel like there's nothing to do, or there's no opportunity to see something like fascinating. You know, we've already kind of know everywhere. But I feel like star parties offer an opportunity to go beyond like our town and our world, and seeing something beautiful like that and free, you know, it's really such an amazing opportunity, and you can learn about it. It's like a peaceful thing, and if you're an AP student for Kegel, you get extra credit, so...
Yep, a shout out to anyone in Mr. Kegel's class.
Get that extra credit.
Alright, so how can someone join the club? Who should they talk to if they have any interest in joining?
Well, I'm going to be putting flyers up around the school telling you to come to the physics room, and if you just come, I'm planning for them to be on Monday, but if Monday does not work for you, we can have another meeting. We can move it around depending on the week. Really, it's not like a set thing. It's really just for everyone to come together, talk science, talk cool things, watch YouTube videos about science and stuff, documentaries. You know, you should talk to me if you want to, like, change it around. Once we have, like, a couple more members, I'll just start to make a group chat. We can talk about it, when we want to meet, how we're going to go on trips like the observatory. Also, I want to go to a space fest in New York if we have that opportunity, if enough people show interest. So if you're just interested in science or anything really, or just the stars, if you just want to look at stars or figure out like what does a telescope do, or make your own telescope accessories, which I have a friend who's coming over this weekend who's helping me fix it for the star party and add handles. So it's really just, you know, no matter what you're interested in, you can just come and you can really just apply and talk about it and really just geek out over it. You know?
Now, you just mentioned the telescope, and I remembered one other thing that you were telling me about, how you kept the telescope over the summer. What was that like? Okay,
it was really nerve-wracking because I have two little sisters, and like my house is kind of crazy, and I was really protective of it. I don't want anyone near it. It's in like a corner of a room. I've like quarantined it. I did take it out a couple of times, and a big thing I noticed about astronomy is it really brings people together from all walks of life. You know, you don't have to be like the science kid in your class. Like that's like a thing I thought when I first came. Like, do I have to be like a smart person? Will I be like lost or something? A lot of like, I put my telescope out and I had some neighbors, you know, some guys I've never really talked to. They're older than me. They graduated, and I'd never talked to them. They're definitely not in my friend group, but they saw me with my telescope looking at Mars, and we just started talking. And they were looking at my telescope. We're talking about how cool it was. So you know, you really just want to see something like awesome. Then you don't have to be like like super smart. You know, you just gotta like it.
All right, that's about all the time we have. Sarah Terracina, thanks for joining us, and best of luck with the Astronomy Club.
Don't forget to come to the Star Party, and if it's cloudy, which the weather says it might, it's the next Friday. But stay updated, and just ask me if you have any questions.
All right, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the MHS Podcast. A thank you to Josh Hyman and Sarah Terracina, and a thank you to all of our sponsors. I'm Eddie Kalegi. We'll see you next time on the Metuchen High School Podcast, the online radio voice of MHS.
The MHS Podcast is also sponsored by Allstate Insurance at 63 Pearl Street in Metuchen. Allstate, are you in good hands?
Continuing here on the Metuchen High School Podcast, the online radio voice of MHS, I'm Eddie Kalegi. It's time for another Club Spotlight, and today we will be focusing in on the Empowerment Club. For that, it's a pleasure to be joined by Club Advisor Ms. Volosin and Club President Senior Sophie Falkenstein. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So first I'll ask you, Ms. Volosin, when was the Empowerment Club first founded, and were you the original advisor?
Yes, so the Empowerment Club was founded 5 years ago by two juniors. I had originally been the faculty advisor with Mr. Gallagher, and now I alternate with Ms. Lozama. But for a couple of years, I was the only faculty advisor for it. And it basically started because the two girls felt like there was a need for a space within the school community where they could talk about issues of gender inequality, but also a way to foster students having a voice and feeling like they could have an impact on school climate and culture.
So what happens at an ordinary club meeting?
Well, usually we start with intros, like introducing you with your name, your grade, your gender pronouns, and something empowering that happened to you that week, which could be anything from like I got an A on a test to like I stood up to someone for something bad that happened to me. And then we go on to talk about like things that are happening in the world, like either internationally or within our own country or even in our own community.
Very cool. A lot of different things you're doing. So why should students join the Empowerment Club? You mentioned having the opportunity to have a voice and speak out. So why should they join the club?
Yeah, I think that students should join the club because it encompasses a lot more than I think kids think that it does. I think people hear the Empowerment Club and they're like, that's a bunch of feminists. And people today often think that feminism is a bad word. Yeah. But empowerment is about creating agency in all different kinds of people. And it's about making people feel that they have control over what's happening to them, how they're portrayed, how they want to interact with others. And that can really apply to everybody. We also do a lot with, I think, talking about contemporary issues that affect teenagers. February is Dating Violence Awareness Month, and that's something that has affected a lot of, students in the school and in the community. And just talking about, gender roles and the pressure of being a male and or female teenager in this day and age. So I think people should come because it can be a relief sometimes to know that there are people who are going through the same things as you and that you have an ability to share your experiences in a safe space and in a community where you can talk about interesting and sometimes controversial, sometimes political, but sometimes personal issues.
So from what I've heard, it's not just feminism. It breaks out from more than just that. Just having the opportunity to feel like you're in control of yourself, and in many different aspects. You just mentioned about dating violence. So it's a very diverse club, not just focused on one thing, but on many different topics.
Definitely. We did things during the month of respect with the Gay Straight Alliance Club. So there are LGBTQ things that we looked at. We look at the minority issues, not just women as a minority.
We also recently talked about in a club meeting certain men's rights issues that have come up in the past, including like equal pay and like what that means for men as well as women.
So what are some of the future plans for the club this year?
Every year we do a fundraiser. We're actually going to try and go on a campaign to involve more members in the club because a lot of our members are upperclassmen, especially from last year. Most of our members were seniors. So we're trying to open ourselves to a new crowd of people and try to get more people interested because, again, it's really more than just for women and feminists.
So when and where are the club meetings, and if someone wants to join, who should they contact?
So kids can just show up, and if they're free, they can come. If something happened to them that week, and they want to talk about it, if they just want to see what we're talking about. So don't feel you need to contact anybody. Just show up when the mood strikes you. They happen in room 128. That's my classroom over in the English hallway, and they meet every Wednesday, and we go from 3 to 3:45.
Well, great to hear. That's about all the time we have. Ms. Volosin, Sophie Falkenstein, it's been a pleasure having you here on the Metuchen High School podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So when we come back, we will be talking Metuchen High sports, including the GMC swimming tournaments. I'm Eddie Kalegi. This is the Metuchen High School podcast, the online radio voice of MHS. Continuing here on the Metuchen High School podcast, the online radio voice of MHS, I'm Eddie Kalegi. Our next guest has covered high school sports in the tri-state area for years and is also a broadcasting teacher. It is a pleasure to be joined by Mike Quick. Welcome to the show.
Eddie, it's great to be here, man, being on this show with you, one of my favorite students of all time. I'm so excited. I've listened to some of your shows. You do a great job, buddy. Very proud of you.
Thank you. So first, let's talk a little bit about the start of your career. When did you first realize that you had an interest in sports media? What was it that drew you to the field?
Fourth grade, I was actually got in trouble. I was talking in my elementary school up in Brookside School, Norwalk, Connecticut, and my teacher, Mr. Fontaine, because I was talking about Dr. J, who's like the LeBron James of my time, and I was talking during class, and she said, Mr. Quick, if you're going to disrupt my class and talk about sports, why don't you just become a sportscaster? And I said, okay, Mr. Fontaine, that's what I'll do. And since fourth grade, I knew what I wanted to do. I always said I had the second greatest job in the world, and I'm a pretty competitive guy, but I would take a back seat for a high school coach any day of the week. I think high school coaches have the greatest job in the world, and I was lucky enough to be able to cover them for 33 years. It was a wonderful job. I loved every second of it.
That sounds very fun. So what has your career covering high school sports entailed, all the different parts of it? What has been the most enjoyable aspect about covering high school sports?
Getting to see kids. You know what? I take that back. When I started doing this in New York, Eddie, everybody told me it would never work. People aren't going to care. People aren't going to care about high school sports in New York. And I'm like, you're crazy. I said, look at this tri-state area. I know we have more pro sports teams than anywhere, but we also have more high school athletes than anywhere. And what we did, in the beginning, we were covering too many sports, because if you try to cover everything, especially in high school in this area, because you can't fool people. So what we tried to do was, in the beginning, was cover everything. And then about 3 years in, it's like, wait a minute. In order for this to work, we got to focus on certain sports. So I did football and basketball, and then we introduced girls basketball. And then in 2006, we introduced lacrosse. And I'm a baseball guy, so it broke my heart. But baseball is so hard to cover on the high school level with single cameras. So that's how we got started, and it was, it's made a difference. I often wondered, did people care? And you run into kids that you covered now that are in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s, and like, oh my God, there was nothing like being on the show on MSG Network. So that's a really cool thing. So it's been a blast, buddy. It really is.
Yeah, having the opportunity for these students to showcase themselves on television, definitely exciting. Now, I want to ask you, because you just brought it up, it's unique. Everybody always thinks of football, basketball, baseball, but also you guys have covered lacrosse in depth. Could you tell us a little more about that?
Well, actually, it started as a challenge, believe it or not. We had to sell our own advertising starting in 2004 to keep the high school shows and the games on the air. And in late 2005, there was an article in Sports Illustrated about lacrosse being the hottest sport, the fastest growing sport. And Eric Gelfand, who was the public relations director for MSG Network at that point, now he's the PR director for the New York Jets, he challenged me and he said, hey, if you sold football and basketball and brought that back, let me see if you can sell lacrosse. I said, I'll have us a show in the air by next year. And we did. We had an Alpha-style lax report, and it just took off. Because buddy, in this area, Long Island, New Jersey, Fairfield County, Connecticut, lacrosse is huge. A much smaller audience than football and basketball, but a very passionate audience. And that thing just took off like wildflower when we started it.
Yep, definitely a growing sport here in the tri-state area. So for more than a decade, you have taught the Veterans Sports Broadcasting Camp, most recently in Bruce Beck's camp, which will be moving to Iona University this year. How did that opportunity come about, and what do you enjoy about getting to teach prospective media students more about the profession?
Well, Eddie, it came about 17 years ago, and 18 years ago, Bruce and Ian did their first ever camp at Montclair State. And after they did it the first year, there was a number of kids, about 15 kids, that, what do we do next year? And Bruce and I are like, what do you mean, what do we do next year? And they're like, well, we want to come back and take it again next year. And they sat down and talked, and they're like, well, we've got to give them something different the following year. We can't give them the same thing. And Bruce said to Ian, I know the guy who should teach this. So Bruce called me, and I said, wow, I'd be honored. I said, Bruce, but if they're advanced campers, we're going to teach this for you. He goes, okay. And you know me, Eddie, you've had me. I'm a very passionate guy. I think I'm a coach. I don't think I'm a broadcaster.
Yes.
I think I teach some life skills. And Bruce is like, okay, great. And then he called me back 2 minutes later. He goes, well, hold on a second here. You're a little different, and you can be intense. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what they need, because at this age, you know, their parents are paying a lot of money for these camps, and my job, I look at it 2 ways for the kids. Either keep them on the track to get them to really, wow, this was like, or sometimes more importantly, get them off the track if this is something that they don't think they can handle when they went to college. Because you know this, right?
Yep.
That's my thing. You better never be on time. You better be early. And you guys have all bought into that, and most of the campers through the years. And it's funny, I've come to find the ones, Eddie, that go on to college and don't do it were the kids that came to class late all the time. How about that?
Yep, absolutely. Learning dedication from such a young age, if you want to go into a field like this, is imperative, and your teaching style allows that to happen, and for high schoolers to really realize how intense this is and how dedicated they must be to attain their goals in this profession.
Well, you know, buddy, if you think about it, what we do in a week in college, if you're majoring in communications or media studies, there's a good chance you won't get to in your first year. Forget your first semester, what we do in a week. We jam a lot in there.
Yeah.
That's why the whole time thing and everything. And I'll tell you, bud, when I watch you guys do it, I always think that first day, man, how is this ever going to work? How is it going to come together? And you guys wow me every year. And I'll tell you, when I leave on Friday, I am on top of the world. I am on top of the world. So it is, you guys you make me feel young, man. You really do. It's because I see how much you want it and how much you put into it, you know? And not just you. I would say 95% of the kids that we've ever had in the classes now in the 17th year, they really wanted it. And we have a great success rate of kids going on, doing well in college, doing well professionally. We have a lot of alums out there in this world of sports media right now. It's truly amazing to see.
Yep, absolutely. So one last thing I wanted to touch on. I've asked former NASCAR President Brent DeWar and Orlando Magic founder Pat Williams this question, so I'll give it to you as well. What are some tips you have for high schoolers in order to be ready for college and the workforce to help them attain the goals they desire?
Eddie, it's simple, and I say this to wherever I go, and it's not just high school kids now. It's the population in general. Stop texting, stop tweeting, talk to people, get to know people, how to understand how to work with people, because you know this, a text, an email, you can't read tone, and the only way you're ever going to be able to develop tone is by talking to people, and I say all the time, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yep.
And for a broadcaster, you better make sure that you're doing more than typing and tweeting. You better be talking. And that's what I've always loved about so many of the campers. You guys are talkative kids. So that's my biggest thing. And it, you know, for somebody my age or older, they're probably like, what are you talking about? And then they're like, he's right. People don't talk anymore. So that's my biggest thing. You want to get somewhere faster than the next guy, get to know the person next to you. Get to know your teacher. Just talk to people. Talk to people. So that would be my biggest thing, Eddie, for young people. Just communicate. Stop doing it with your fingers and do it, talk to them. Talk to them.
Definitely, because I notice in this generation, you go into a restaurant, for example, you'll look around, everyone is just looking at their phones and not communicating face-to-face. And I'd also like to touch on, if you're not communicating with people, how is that going to prepare you for the workforce, for job interviews where you have to talk face-to-face?
But when you guys come into that class, put your phones down. Don't play around with your phones.
Yep.
Don't want to see it. And I think it works. I mean, look at you. Look at all the people that you've been able to get on your show from Metuchen High School because you reach out to them and you talk to them and you converse. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're the perfect example of what a young kid should be doing. That's why you're going to be successful for a long, long time, buddy. You'll be doing an interview with somebody like you as me 30 years from now when they bring you back and say, hey, you meant something to me, did you come on a show? Because you get it. You really do. You're an old soul, Eddie. You get it, man. You do. You really do.
Well, thanks a lot, Mike. That's about all the time we have. Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us here on the Metuchen High School podcast.
I'll see you at camp, buddy.
All right, so when we come back, Josh and I will be looking into the top activities in Middlesex County with spring and summer on the way. We'll be back after this commercial break. This is the Metuchen High School podcast, the online radio voice of MHS.
Having trouble seeing the board in class? Do you need safety glasses for your school sport? If you answered yes to either of these questions, head over to Optique Unique, the eyeglass store at 406 Main Street in Metuchen. Optique Unique does it all. Not only do they offer eyewear for all ages, they also sell sports-specific safety glasses for kids and adults. Call them at 732-321-2020. That's 732-321-2020, or visit OptiqueUnique.com. Do you want to build character, build confidence, or even build yourself? All that and more can be accomplished at the Black Belt Institute at 23 New Street, right here in Metuchen. Students of all ages have been able to learn respect, discipline, fitness, and self-defense from their experienced instructors for over 20 years. Whether you're an adult looking for stress reduction or know someone young who has interest in Taekwondo, the Black Belt Institute is the place to go. The Institute takes a fun approach at teaching the rules of self-defense, instilling in their students an I-can-do-it attitude. Interested in taking a class? Call them at 732-205-9797 or visit their website at blackbeltinst.com. Once again, that's 732-205-9797 or blackbeltinst.com. The Black Belt Institute, Metuchen's leader in martial arts and fitness.
Welcome back to the Metuchen High School podcast, the online radio voice of MHS. I'm Eddie Kalegi. Downtown Metuchen has seen its rebirth take place over the past couple years. To discuss that, his personal life, and the benefits of Tai Chi, it's a pleasure to be joined by Bob Matland. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Eddie. It's a pleasure to be here.
I want to hear a little bit about yourself. You've had a long career teaching Tai Chi, other karate classes at Black Belt Institute. You have a lot to offer. Tell us about that experience and a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. I spent many years working for corporate USA, and then I made a career change in midlife, and I started teaching Taekwondo at Black Belt Institute. Started at Black Belt Institute in 1993. Moved into Metuchen, started in South Edson, moved into Metuchen in 1996, and we've been at the same location at 23 New Street ever since 1996. I've been an active member in the community. I've been with the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce since, it's been about 8 years now. I've been in charge of the cruise nights run by the Chamber of Commerce for the past 7 years, and was also the chairperson for the newsletter when the Chamber of Commerce did have a paper newsletter. I started teaching Tai Chi about 17 years ago, and I was teaching at the Edison Senior Citizens. Did that for almost 17 years without anything coming back to me. I did it as a community service to help the Edison seniors. Now, I do teach Tai Chi for health, and for those people who don't know what Tai Chi is about, it is based on a Chinese martial art. But when it's taught in very slow movements, it becomes a very therapeutic form of exercise that helps to work the joints' full range of motion, enhance balance by developing more leg strength, and by keeping the back nice and straight and doing breathing with the movements. I am now teaching at Edison Seniors as well as JCC in North Edison, and I have just been contacted by Westfield Senior Citizen Housing to teach there also.
Very cool that you've gotten the experience to teach at so many places, including Black Belt Institute, that has been a loyal sponsor here of the MHS podcast for both years. So talk to us a little more about Tai Chi. What is the most beneficial thing people can get from taking Tai Chi classes?
Okay, Tai Chi will, again, help to develop better range of motion of the joint. I have several students now with Parkinson's disease, and they have kind of a disconnect between the brain and the extremities, the body parts. Tai Chi helps them to reconnect, at least during the time that they're doing Tai Chi. That will, in effect, help long run to get that connection running more smoothly. I was part of the moving day, which was put on by the Parkinson's Disease Foundation through Hackensack Meridian and JFK Medical Center. This was last September. I was there to perform Tai Chi, and of course I had people involved so that people could understand the therapeutic effects of Tai Chi for people with Parkinson's disease. I've also taught people with multiple sclerosis because, again, it helps to develop the leg strength for better balance, which we have also found to be very significant in teaching the seniors, because many seniors are so afraid of falling. And the Tai Chi helps them to develop the confidence and the leg strength that they won't fall. And I've been told several times by many seniors that I am saving their lives.
That's very interesting to hear how people who aren't as fortunate as some of us, who are getting the opportunity through Tai Chi to feel that reconnection again. It's very great to hear that you've helped so many people with Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, and even the seniors. So we're going to shift gears now, because when I met you back in October at the WOLD live broadcast at the Classic Car Show, it was clear that you had quite the knowledge about the cultural renaissance of downtown Metuchen. It's something that particularly caught my attention was the speculated plan about uniting the Forum Theater with the legendary Count Basie Theater in Red Bank. Tell us about the possibilities of that and what it would entail.
Sure. Okay, everything that I'm going to present to you regarding our upcoming Performing Arts Center was presented at a Chamber quarterly meeting on October 15th, which I attended, and Mayor Jonathan Bush was there making the presentation. Now, he did reference the fact that they've been in touch with Count Basie Theater to help get information, and Count Basie Theater in return is interested in a collaboration where if there is a big name coming into Count Basie Theater in Red Bank, as you know, and they're looking for a fill-in during the week, they are more than interested in having the Forum Theater or the Metuchen Performing Arts Center being that avenue so that they can fill in the gaps while the people, or these headliners are waiting to perform at the Count Basie Theater. I think that would be a fantastic collaboration between Metuchen and the Count Basie Theater. I don't know if you're aware, but Metuchen has received a $3.5 million grant from the Middlesex County Board of Chosen Freeholders. And this is to initiate the beginnings of the Performing Arts Center so that the borough can purchase the Forum Theater and expand into what is now New Jersey Petroleum, and offer not only the performances but also a place where people can go before the show starts, and maybe even after, maybe have a drink and a little something to eat, and that way they can be prepared for a fantastic show in downtown Metuchen. As you know, there have been so many things going on in Metuchen over the last several years.
Yes.
And having owned a business right on New Street for 23 years, I've had the opportunity to see the changes and what a fantastic future there is for Metuchen. The building of the 6-level parking deck and the 273 apartment units next door were fantastic, but even better than that was the plaza that came in along with those buildings. That plaza has afforded not only the Chamber of Commerce, but also the Metuchen Downtown Alliance, a place where they can have community events, community gatherings, get the people of Metuchen coming together and doing things together. And it's such a positive thing for downtown Metuchen. I think that the government officials in Metuchen definitely have their sights aimed in a good direction at building Metuchen and making a better borough. And as you know, we also now have Whole Foods. I'm sure a lot of people are enjoying the Whole Foods supermarket.
Yes.
With the organic offerings, as well as the other stores that are going in. And, of course, we're going to have more people moving in with additional 75-unit apartment building going in behind Wine Chateau. So there are a lot of things going on in downtown Metuchen. We now have Title Boxing, we have Mike's Subs, Chipotle, Leonardo Jewelers, Verizon Wireless, Massage Envy. I mean, there's going to be more.
What especially fascinates me is just this amazing transition that the town has gone over just a couple short years. And you mentioned bringing the community together. And something that has particularly caught my eye is you just were talking about Whole Foods and some of these other businesses, these chains that are coming into Metuchen. Because as you would know, for the longest time, I mean, aside from Friendly's and maybe a couple others, there weren't really that many chains that were coming into the Brainy Borough, and now that has begun to change. Do you expect that to continue?
Well, it certainly looks like we have that possibility, since we do have additional retail spaces still available over by the Woodmont apartment and the Nexus parking deck. Right now we have just the Hot Yoga Revolution that has moved into the retail space. And I know that the borough is looking for more opportunities of businesses to come in to help the community and provide services and goods to the Metuchen community. We have more retail space going in across Middlesex Avenue from Whole Foods, so we have more opportunity there also. I mean, there's not going to be a lack of a place to go and get some fantastic food in Metuchen.
Yes, definitely. Well, that's about all the time we have. Bob Matland, it was a pleasure having you here on the Metuchen High School podcast.
Thank you so much, Eddie. It's always a pleasure, and if you ever have time to meet again, I'd be more than happy to help out.
Definitely. So that's about all the time we have today on the Metuchen High School podcast. Thank you to our guests, Coach Halloran and Bob Matland. I'm Eddie Kalegi. We'll see you next time on the Metuchen High School podcast, the online radio voice of MHS. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Metuchen High School podcast, the online radio voice of MHS. I'm Eddie Kalegi. It's time for our second ever bonus feature, a great guest joining us today. From founding an NBA team to penning over 100 literary works to being a world-renowned motivational speaker, our next guest has done it all. It's a pleasure to be joined by Pat Williams. Welcome to the show.
Eddie, thank you. Thanks for that nice introduction.
So while basketball might be the sport people pair with you now, you also had a budding baseball career early on. How did that experience in minor league baseball lead you to your first executive position in professional sports?
Eddie, my roots are in baseball. I played baseball in high school. I went to Wake Forest and caught for the baseball team there for 4 years. Then I spent 7 years in the Philadelphia Phillies organization, 2 as a minor league catcher, and then 5 running minor league ball clubs in the Phillies farm system. So those are my roots, and I always thought that my upside in sports was going to come in baseball. But 51 years ago, Dr. Jack Ramsey called me from the 76ers office, said he needed some help running the Sixers front office. Would I be interested? Well, I'd never met Jack Ramsey. He didn't know me, but he'd heard about me, and I went up there for 2 interviews, and the end result was I took the job, and here we are 51 years later, still in the NBA. Quite a story, isn't it?
Yep, quite a story indeed. So you talked about your time with the 76ers. You returned to the 76ers organization in 1974 and had a 12-year stint as general manager. Could you tell us about that transition back to Philadelphia and leading one of the teams in the NBA that was struggling in the mid-1970s to a future title?
Well, I went to Chicago soon thereafter and way back and spent 4 years running the Bulls, and then 1 year with the Atlanta Hawks. In the summer of 1974, I returned to Philadelphia, and you're right, that was a 76er franchise that had hit rock bottom. There was no place to go but up. So we began to make some good draft picks, and we made some deals, and the next thing you know, we became competitive. Then in 1976, we acquired Julius Erving from the Nets, and began. We got Bobby Jones a few years later. And then in the summer of 82, we brought Moses Malone aboard. And that was the turning point. In the 82-83 season, we had almost a perfect year. Ended up beating the Lakers in the finals, and the Sixers had their title. That was the last time, by the way, a 76er team has won a title.
Wow.
And it's still clearly remembered by basketball fans in the Philadelphia area.
So in 1986, you joined the initial group of founders to create an NBA expansion team, the Orlando Magic. Tell us about that experience, how that came about, and what your position with the team is now.
Well, I was looking for a new challenge. I'd been in Philly for 12 years. I needed a new challenge. And the ultimate challenge in this business is to start your own team up from scratch, an expansion team. So I went to Orlando, hooked up with some business leaders and governmental leaders, and we began to sell the community that we could get a team. And we began to sell the NBA owners and the commissioner, and we worked hard on that, for about 10 months. And then, in late April of 1987, the NBA owners announced that they were going to add 4 new expansion teams. And that's how Miami, Orlando, Charlotte, and Minnesota got into the NBA. And it was a great moment here, great excitement. We're currently in the middle of our 30th season as an NBA team. This is our 30th anniversary season, and I've been with the team ever since. I've worn a number of hats, been responsible for different areas, but I guess it's safe to say I'm a lifer. I still have a great love for this team that we helped to start, and so I'm still here and probably will be till my last breath.
Shifting to your personal life, when I was reading about you, I was blown away to learn that you have 19 children, 14 adopted. What has that experience been like, fathering so many, getting to bring a family together? It sounds like an amazing experience that you've had.
Well, it's been nonstop parenting. We adopted 14 children over a 10-year period, 1983 to 93. These 14 children came from 4 foreign countries, merged together with our own children, and lo and behold, we had 19 children. Don't ask me how it happened. People ask, and I said, well, we just had a hard time saying no. When we learned about these children, we just said, what's 2 more? What's wrong? Let's take 2 more. And the next thing you know, we had this massive house, 13 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, and we've gotten all those children raised. The age range is 33 to 47. We have 19 and a half grandchildren. And so we'll be in the parenting business and the grandparenting business till the cows come home.
Well, I mean, with all those kids, it must have taken all day to open all those Christmas presents.
Well, Christmas was a big deal, Eddie. It still is. We don't see all these children regularly, but at Christmas time, most of them come back. Many of the children live in California or Massachusetts or New York City or Nashville. They're scattered. But around Christmas, they all find a way to get back to Central Florida, and we always enjoy that.
So you have done and continue to do so much in your career. Since this is a high school radio show, I wanted to ask, what are some tips you have about time management?
Well, don't waste time. Don't waste your time. You can't get it back. Keep the television set off. And above all, put those little computer screens and those cell phones away. When I travel, I see young people and old alike. They've got that little thing just buried in their hands, and that's all they do. They're texting and they're tweeting, and come on. I mean, there's nothing of value that comes from that. So work hard at your studies. I mean, really work hard. And that way, you've got some options when it comes to college time. You're not going to take what's offered. You've got some options. Above all, become a serious reader. About good books. Stay in shape physically. Work out. Eat properly. Vegetables, fruit, lean meat. Put the sodas away. Forget the fast food. And above all, get plenty of sleep. I mean, you can't go to bed at 1 a.m. and then be up at 6:30.
Yep.
And have any way to have a good day. The next day, you'll be exhausted. You've got to get sleep. Those are a few thoughts, Eddie.
Yep, so you mentioned it's important to be reading, and you've become an avid author in recent years, including your most recent book, Characters Carved in Stone, telling stories about West Point. Could you tell us more about what the book is about and why people should pick up a copy?
It's about the 12 benches at Trophy Point on the West Point campus. And at the end of each bench, there's a word carved into the bench, designed to plant that word right in the heart and the mind of West Point students. Words like courage, dignity, perseverance, responsibility, trust, loyalty, integrity, those kind of words. And so we did a chapter on each word, and then we used West Point graduates, famous men and women, who we thought best modeled that particular word. The book is out. It's in bookstores now. Amazon.com, always a good way to order books. BarnesandNoble.com. And I think young and old will benefit from reading the book.
So once again, the book is called Characters Carved in Stone. Pat, thanks again for joining us here on the Metuchen High School podcast, and best of luck in what is to come.
Okay, Eddie, all the best to you now. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's about all the time we have on today's show. We hope you'd enjoyed today's Metuchen High School podcast bonus feature. I'm Eddie Kalegi. We'll see you next time here on the online radio voice of MHS.